Hello everybody, this is Uncle E back with Social Media Book Club, Readers Are Leaders. Now if you ask any successful person, they will agree on this one thing, that if you want to be successful, that you should read. And so that's what we're doing here today. We're going to be going through the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. And you know what they say, if you put it in a book, most people will never find it. Well, as Reading Rainbow says, take a look, it's in the book. So we're going to be reading together and going through this. We're on law number 10. If you take anything away from what we read today, I want you to drop it in the comments below. This is a way for you to participate, not only by reading along, but also sharing your insights from the message today. 48 Laws of Power. Let us begin. Law 10, infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky. You can die from someone else's misery. Emotional states are as infectious as diseases. You may feel you are helping the drowning man, but you're only precipitating your own disaster. The unfortunate sometimes draw misfortune on themselves. They will also draw it on you. Associate with the happy and fortunate instead. Keys to power. Those misfortunates among us who have been brought down by circumstances beyond their control deserve all the help and sympathy we can give them. But there are others who are not born to misfortune or unhappiness, but who draw it upon themselves by their destructive actions and unsettling effect on others. It would be a great thing if we could raise them up, change their patterns, but more often than not, it is their patterns that end up getting inside and changing us. The reason is simple. Humans are extremely susceptible to the moods, emotions, and even the ways of thinking of those with whom they spend their time. The incurably unhappy and unstable have a particularly strong infecting power because their characters and emotions are so intense. They often present themselves as victims, making it difficult at first to see their miseries as self-inflicted. Before you realize the real nature of their problems, you have been infected by them. Understand this, in a game of power, the people you associate with are critical. The risk of associating with infectors is that you will waste valuable time and energy trying to free yourself. Through a kind of guilt by association, you will also suffer in the eyes of others. Never underestimate the dangers of infection. There are many kinds of infectors to be aware of, but one of the most insidious is the sufferer from chronic dissatisfaction. Cassius, the Roman conspirator against Julius Caesar, had the discontent that comes from deep envy. He simply could not endure the presence of anyone of greater talent. Probably because Caesar sensed the man's interminable sourness, he passed him up for the position of first praetorship and gave the position to Brutus instead. Cassius brooded and brooded. His hatred for Caesar became pathological. Brutus himself, a devoted Republican, disliked Caesar's dictatorship. Had he had the patience to wait, he would have become the first man in Rome after Caesar's death and could have undone the evil that the leader had wrought. But Cassius infected him with his own rancor, bending his ear daily with tales of Caesar's evil. He finally won Brutus over to the conspiracy. It was the beginning of a great tragedy. How many misfortunes could have been avoided had Brutus learned to fear the power of infection? There is only one solution to infection: quarantine. But by the time you recognize the problem, it is often too late. Alola Montez overwhelms you with her forceful personality. Cassius intrigues you with his confiding nature and the depth of his feelings. How can you protect yourself against such insidious viruses? The answer lies in judging people on the effects they have on the world and not on the reasons they give for their problems. Infectors can be recognized by the misfortune they draw on themselves, their turbulent past, their long line of broken relationships, their unstable careers, and the very force of their character, which sweeps you up and makes you lose your reason. Be forewarned by these signs of infectors. Learn to see the discontent in their eye. Most important of all, do not take pity. Do not enmity yourself in trying to help. The infector will remain unchanged, but you will be unhinged. The other side of infection is equally valid and perhaps more readily understood. There are people who attract happiness to themselves by their good cheer, natural buoyancy, and intelligence. They are a source of pleasure, and you must associate with them to share in the prosperity they draw upon themselves. This applies to more than good cheer and success. All positive qualities can infect us. Talleyrand had many strange and intimidating traits, but most agreed that he surpassed all Frenchmen in graciousness, aristocratic charm, and wit. Indeed, he came from one of the oldest noble families in the country, and despite his belief in democracy in the French Republic, he retained his courtly manners. His contemporary Napoleon was in many ways the opposite, a peasant from Corsica, taciturn and ungracious, even violent. There was no one Napoleon admired more than Talleyrand. He envied his minister's way with people, his wit, and his ability to charm women. As best he could, he kept Talleyrand around him, hoping to soak up the culture he lacked. There's no doubt that Napoleon changed as his rule continued. Many of the rough edges were smoothed by his constant association with Talleyrand. Use the positive side of this emotional osmosis to your advantage. If, for example, you are miserly by nature, you will never go beyond a certain limit. Only generous souls can attain greatness. Associate with the generous, then, and they will infect you, opening up everything that is tight and restricted in you. If you're gloomy, gravitate to the cheerful. If you're prone to isolation, force yourself to befriend the gregarious. Never associate with those who share your defects. They will reinforce everything that holds you back. Only create associations with positive affinities. Make this a rule of life, and you will benefit more from all the therapy in the world. Man, watch your associations, man. This is the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Just went through law number 10. Remember this, guys. You got the power. Use it. This is Uncle E signing out with Social Media Book Club. See you again tomorrow.